I'm an addict. My name's Tyler. Clean date's 3/20/2019. My home group is He Do Recover Men's Meeting out in Beaverton. We meet on Tuesday nights at 7:15. I have a sponsor. I have a working knowledge of the 12 steps. I'm of service to Narcotics Anonymous. And a little housekeeping. I just want to thank the committee for Life After Death speaker meeting for putting this event on. I remember last time when I was clean, and the Maho Day was the big speaker meeting in Portland. Does anybody remember Maho Day? Yeah, that was a fun one, man. And today was pretty nostalgic. I mean, I got together with a friend, went out to dinner to Screen Door like we used to do before we went to that meeting. And so it kind of reminded me of the early days. But thanks, Roger, for asking me to do this. Thanks to the committee for putting this on. It's exciting that there's a couple speaker meetings going on in the Portland area nowadays. I used to get pretty nervous before doing speaker events. Thank you. Used to get pretty nervous before doing speaker events, but what I've learned over the years is that the message of Narcotics Anonymous is a language of love, and if I talk from the heart, addicts will hear me, and that's what I know. So you want to make God laugh, make a plan, right? And so previously I used to I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to talk about that, but if I just get up and tell my story and tell my truth, then the message will come out clear. Narcotics Anonymous has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. It's been a beautiful journey. I've grown a lot over the last several years. I'll talk a little bit about how I got here and what it was like before. So I don't know if I was born an addict, but I do know that when I was a kid, I had some addict tendencies. I was a liar, a cheat, and a thief at a young age. I was always getting in trouble at school. I remember I stole a tech deck from a Bi-Mart, and they caught it on camera, and they wound up calling my mom. They tracked it back to the Bi-Mart card, and they called her, and they're like, yeah, it's not that big a deal if you just bring it back. And she's like, oh no. And so she made it a big old thing, and then I got in trouble for skateboarding on my elementary school's roof, got brought home from the cops in the 5th grade, and I'm thinking back now, it's like at a young age, I was never satisfied with who I was. I didn't really understand who I was, but I always seemed like I hated me and I wanted to be somebody else, and I lived in this world of fantasy, whether it came to video games or music and bands that I listened to. I wanted to be anybody else but myself. So I feel like my first drug of choice was fantasy, something that I could do to change the way I felt when I felt uncomfortable. The first time I picked up a substance, my parents had a domestic incident where I was on a landline talking to a girl or something. I think I was in 7th grade. And I remember my mom picked up the phone and she was screaming, "Call the cops, he hit me." And my older sister had her own apartment, and so the police showed up. My sister came and was like, "You don't need to be around this shit." And she took me to her apartment complex over in Oregon City. And I had a few of my friends from school that lived in that complex. And that was the first time that I tried a substance. They were smoking pot. And I remember I was feeling different all those years. Everybody had a red shirt on and I had a blue one on. And when I first smoked pot for the first time, that was my red shirt. I felt like I belonged somewhere, and it took away that uneasy and that uncomfortable feeling that I felt just being myself. And I was like, okay, this is great. And so I started, I got through school. I did okay in grades. In middle school, I started experimenting with different drugs in high school, harder drugs. I noticed pretty quickly that I partied different than some of the other kids, and so I found other people that partied like how I wanted to. They wanted to party harder, they wanted to party longer, they didn't care if they were doing substances before school. And but surprisingly, I graduated high school, I got through, I got myself a decent job, was making pretty good money, got my first apartment, but my drug use got pretty out of control. My main drug of choice was heroin and meth, and yeah, I remember it led me to going to treatment for the first time. It was an outpatient treatment. I kind of just BS'd my way through it. and I was like using around UAs. Using around UAs, bullshit. Wasn't taking it seriously, but it was around that time that I had my first introduction to Narcotics Anonymous. It was mandated that we go to meetings, and so even though I wasn't quite ready in my heart yet, I remember the very first meeting I ever went to, my older sister went with me because I was scared. I didn't know what I was walking into, but it was the nooner at the Westland Meeting Hall across the Oregon City Bridge. That was the first meeting that I'd ever went to, and I remember the seed was planted, but like I remember making some friends there, and I was like, these people are kind of like me. Like they talk like me. They've done some of the things that I've done. That identification was attractive, and so I did start going to meetings, even though I wasn't working an honest program at that time. I got a sponsor. I never used him. I was still drinking alcohol and using substances around UAs and stuff, but like I had an attraction to these meetings. And so I skated my way through that treatment program, and I just went right back to what I was doing, though. I was just full-time using. I wound up getting in trouble at work, and they sent me to an inpatient treatment down in Seaside. I actually approached them because I was about to get fired, and I was like, look, I need some help. I was IV heroin user. The biggest mistake I'd ever made in my using career was probably sticking a needle in my arm, because once that happened, there was no going back after that. But they sent me to this treatment center down in Seaside, and it was co-ed, which was probably not the best circumstances, but you can imagine. So I went to this treatment center. I was inpatient there for about a month, and the other fellowship's a lot more prominent in the Clatsop County area over there. There's probably 5 or 6 NA meetings, which I did attend, but to be honest with you, I actually did a little bit more work in the other fellowship at that time. I got a sponsor in that fellowship. I was doing some step work. I was keeping my nose clean, and I was starting to get a little bit of relief from my using. And I did a month inside the inpatient treatment, and then they put me in this halfway house. It used to be called Thugs Off Drugs at the time, but now it's called Helping Hands, I think. And so I was living there. I was going to meetings. I was only planning on staying in Seaside temporarily, but I got myself a little job there. I had my car there. Things were going pretty good. And I was working at the Zoomies at the outlet mall, and I was driving with my coworker. We were going to do a bank drop at the end of the day, and I was speeding down Holiday through the main drag in Seaside, and I got pulled over for speeding, and I turned to my coworker. I was like, hope you don't got any warrants, as a joke. And they took my license, and they ran my name, and I had 7 felony warrants out of Clackamas County. And so they're like, Mr. H, we're going to need you to step out of the car, yada, yada, yada. And so they sent me over to Clatsop County Jail. I had theft charges and a handful of other things that I was doing when I was using in Portland. And so they sent me there. They shipped me to Salem and went through Clackamas, dealt with all that stuff, and they put me on this ankle monitor. And my sponsor from Seaside came to see me, and I was not really engaged in the recovery process. As soon as I got off my ankle monitor, I went and used heroin, and I overdosed in a Walgreens parking lot over off 82nd. Someone found me. It was just before my court date for all these theft charges. I pawned some property that was stolen, and that's a theft 1 automatically, apparently. And so, anyways, I thought I was gonna shake this case, right? And then I overdosed and caught another charge for possession for the overdose, and they wound up putting me in jail for 6 months. And when I got out of jail, I just did the same. I started going back to the same thing. I picked up right where I left off. I met some guys in jail that I was running with, and I wound up getting arrested on Christmas Day, 2014, in Canby for selling drugs. It was a controlled buy. It was a controlled buy in Canby. I got busted. I was trying to plead with the cop. I was like, but it's Christmas. And he's like, you don't care that it's Christmas, dude. He's like, you got a scale, And so I go to jail, and like when I was in jail prior, this counselor from this very extensive treatment program through Clackamas County came and talked to me, and I pretty much told her to fuck off. I was like, I don't want to go do that. It's a snitch program. I'm not doing that. And so when I got arrested on Christmas, though, and I got into this, I went to jail. I was looking prison time over my head for a suspended sentence. They're like, you can do this program or you can go to prison. We're done with your bullshit. And so I was like, all right. So the gal came to talk to me again. She's like, do you want to talk to me this time? I was like, yeah, let's talk. And I was like, I need some serious help here. I was like, I've been, I'm strung out on this. I'm strung out on that. The progression's been really bad. I need some help. And so I went and started this program, and this program had 4 phases to it. And in the first phase, you have to tag around with this mentor. And this mentor took me to this meeting that at the time was at the St. Vincent's Providence Hospital. It was called Heedy Recover, which is my home group now. And I'd been to meetings before, but this was a men's meeting, which I had never been to a men's meeting before. And I don't know, I heard something that just penetrated my spirit at that meeting, and I knew that I was at home. Like, I'd had that identification prior at that Westland meeting hall and some other meetings, but when I heard those men talking, it just penetrated my spirit, and I was hooked. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is the real deal. And so I asked a guy to sponsor me there, and that was the first time I'd actually taken recovery seriously. I focused on my treatment while I was in treatment, but I talked to my sponsor every day. I've still got his phone number memorized, 828-4790, because I called him every single day while I was in treatment. And I'm not scared to share that because he puts it on every phone list at every meeting he goes to. But I called him every day. I asked him if he wanted me to get started on some step work. He's like, no, just focus on what you're doing in treatment. We'll get to that. And so I got out of treatment, moved into a recovery house, and started getting busy, man. I mean, I got plugged in with the literature. Him and I went through my first round of steps. It was we did it out of the step working guide the first time that I'd done it. And it's like 69 questions for the first step, and the 4th step's brutal. But I learned a lot about myself, and then we started doing tradition studies. I learned about service work because this guy that sponsors me, he's still my sponsor to this day, and he's sitting in this room. He was doing like PR and area stuff, and he was a service monster, and so I started doing service stuff. And when I got out of that program, though, and I got placed into a recovery house, I wasn't going to be anywhere near PDU, and so I picked a different home group. I was Spirit of NA men's meeting over in Southeast Portland. There's some guys in here from Spirit, and I got to know some of the predecessors there. Pete B, rest in peace. Me and that guy used to... John's in here. We make coffee before the meeting. I'd secretariat, and Pete would come in. We'd clean the place up, and I got pretty involved. I was doing area level service, which I was secretary. It was a nightmare, but excuse me. Things were going really good. I was happy. I felt like I was growing. I had a decent little job. I had some plans to, for career-wise, I wanted to get into the union. That was a career goal that I had. Everything was going great. And then I met a girl. And there's nothing wrong with girls, like, by any means. They say finances and romances, right? But, I met this girl, and there's nothing wrong with, dating and recovery or anything like that. But it consumed me. And I fell for this girl. I started to slowly distance myself from the fellowship, from my recovery, from my sponsor. I wasn't being honest. And then, when I met her, she was in some 12-step recovery. That's how I'd actually met her, was through a meeting. And, her process was different than mine, and her spiritual views were different than mine. And to try to save this relationship, I actually started to compromise myself to look more attractive to her. I started changing my beliefs, even though I didn't really believe in them, to match hers so that I could keep this relationship intact. And it was super unhealthy. I see that now, but when you're in it, you don't really see it. And so I wound up getting into an accident at work, and I lost part of my foot, just half my big toe on my right foot. I lost part of my big toe. And when I went to the hospital, I had backed myself so far away from the help that they had become the enemy. They offered me narcotic pain medication. Like, you ever had Dilaudid? I was like, shoot it. And so they hit me with some pain medication, and I was loaded. Like, it wasn't just relieving pain. Like I was straight up loaded at the hospital, and my mom came to see because they'd heard about this nasty accident that had happened. My mom came, my family came, and they were horrified when they saw me because I had a little over 2 years clean and healthy and looking good, and they came and saw me high at the hospital. And they approached the doctors and they were like, he's an addict. Like he is a straight up heroin addict. He should not be on any pain medication like that unless it's closely monitored. And they're like, he's an adult. And so I ran with that. And then my sponsor knew that I had been drifting, right? And so I don't think he came to the hospital. He called, we were talking on the phone, and he's like, look, you need to listen. He's like, you need to choose your next moves very carefully. He's like, she is not going to keep you clean. I will take you to a meeting if you want to go. And I pretty much told him to fuck off. And this is the denial, right? Like I got out of the hospital, I was still taking whatever they gave me. And once I went back to work though, like, I wasn't in recovery and I wasn't clean, but I was like moderately using as, take only as directed. But I was able to like go to work. I was able to function. I bought myself a new car, like a car I'd actually really wanted for a long time. And so there was like a lot of denial there because things were going good. In my mind, I thought things were going good. Had the girl, had the job, had the car, but her and I wound up breaking up. And so I had made the help the enemy. I had put all my stock into this woman. And when she was gone, what did I have left? I had backed myself so far into a corner, I reached for the one thing I knew that was going to make me feel better. Even though I was already kind of using, I went straight for it and I hit the ground running. And so I threw away all that clean time after my hospital visit. I didn't think to reach out to anybody. I just went for it. And I wound up getting kicked out of the recovery house I was living in. I was using under their noses, mind you, during this whole time, like the pain medication, the this, that, and the other. And one of the guys in the house I'm really good friends with, his name's Ted, and he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to ride it till the wheels fell off. And what had happened was, like, they say insanity's doing the same thing and expecting different results. Like, I knew exactly what was going to happen, but I was so hopeless and broken and heartbroken, I didn't care. I was making her out to be the martyr, and I was playing the victim, and I was like, I'm heartbroken, I'm going to do whatever I want. And so I went on a run for about 10 months, and there had always been consequences when I was using, but they seemed, other than not getting any legal trouble, like it was like concentrated bitter ends through that whole 10-month process. It was awful. Almost got murdered, got ripped off a bunch of times. I was hotel hopping thinking I could sell drugs and make it work, and I wound up totaling the car that I bought that, I was all excited that I had bought. I wound up totaling it, hit a parked car, nodded out in a neighborhood, just dumb shit. And so I was at my wit's end, and I had a buddy of mine. Me and him have been friends since 7th grade, and he would occasionally give me money so I could get a hotel when I was on the down and out. And I reached out to him. He said he's like, I'm not going to give you any more money. I think he'd been talking with Drew, my sponsor. And he was like, I'll be giving no more money, but I'll take you to a meeting, which is like the last place I wanted to fucking go because, I was known in the fellowship, but he took me to this men's meeting he took me to this men's meeting. I went out there, I saw some people I knew. I think I slept through the whole meeting, but one of my buddies came up to me and he's like, you need a hug and a cheeseburger, dude. And he gave me a big old hug. And then about a week later, my family intervened and was like, what do you want to do, man? My sister said I could come stay with her. I told her I'd get clean, but I didn't get clean right away. I was using in her house, and for a couple weeks, I was getting shit dropped off at the house, and I felt really guilty because my sister and I had this cycle where it's like I'd screw my life up, and she'd come in and save her little brother, and the cycle had been repeating for years. And my niece was upstairs sleeping. She's, just a kid. My sister took me in out of the goodness of her heart, and I'm downstairs in her bathroom trying to hit my neck because I'd blown everything out. And it was in that moment where this gift of desperation was given to me. I was in the mirror, I was trying to fix, and I looked in my eyes and I saw what I'd really become. I was a broken, hopeless human being that needed some help. And I prayed, and I hadn't prayed in a long time. Like, I prayed to God to either help me or kill me because I was done. That was it. I wanted to kill myself, but I was too chicken shit to do it, and I knew something had to change. So if there's 2 days I'll always remember, it's my last day using and my first day clean. So my clean date is 3/20/2019. I got clean the next day. The first phone call I made was to my sponsor, and I was like, I'm ready this time. I'm ready to come back. And then I called that guy at the recovery house, Ted, and I told him because I wanted taking some money from them and I owed them an amends, so I paid them back. But I remember when I first got clean, I think I had a week clean or something. My sponsor picked me up and went to go get some dinner. I was still detoxing pretty bad. I mean, it was off several substances. I was pretty shook for a couple of months. And I can't remember what meeting he took me to in North Portland, but I just wanted to go outside and smoke Newports. Like, I was jonesing, I was shaking, I couldn't keep still. And he was like, I was like, how much longer is this meeting? He's like, it's another hour. And we were already like an hour in. He was just screwing with me. I was like, I want to go smoke. But yeah, so I stayed with my sister for a bit. I got back into step work and literature, and I was going to meetings, and I was like all the recovery jargon and all the literature and everything I'd done kind of came back like muscle memory. And so I was just like, I felt like I was just spitting fire at these meetings, and I only had like a week or two clean, three weeks clean. My sponsor's like, look, your experience is your experience and it's still valid, but give yourself the opportunity to be new again. It's like, obviously there was a shortcoming there was a shortfall in your program last time. And so I didn't really know how to take that at first, but I see what he was doing now. It's like I needed to give myself that opportunity to be new again. I did do some dumb shit. I mean, all of us have, right? When I had a couple months clean, I decided to go hang out with this girl I probably shouldn't have at a hotel. And I feel bad for Brian. Brian got the brunt of it. I used to call him with some crazy shit all the time. But I remember I was hanging out with this girl. She was definitely not clean, but I took my step work with me there. And I stayed the night there. I didn't run this by anybody, not my sponsor, nothing. And so I took my step work, and then we went to the mall for a bit, and we came back, and they wouldn't let her back. Like, she left her ID card or some shit, and they wouldn't let her back in the room. She had a bad ID, a fake ID. And I'm like pleading with the front desk. I was like, look, like my step work's in there. Like, it's like, what am I going to tell my sponsor? The disease ate my homework? Like, and so they wound up giving it back, and I was like, look. And so I'm sitting on the TriMet bus, dreading this phone call I'm about to make. So I called Brian first. And I'm like, look, man, this is what happened. And then I called my sponsor, and he's probably just like, fuck. But anyways, so I wound up moving back into that recovery house at about 6 months clean. And, man, the journey's been going ever since. I mean, I know I talked about the past quite a bit, but the last 5+ years, man, have been really good. I've gotten to do some cool stuff. My mom never met her biological dad. They had a phone, that's a long story for another day, but they had a phone relationship. They've been talking on the phone for several, 20-something years. And when I had about 6 months clean, there was a family reunion in Idaho, and I got to drive there with my mom and watch her hug her biological dad for the first time. I wouldn't have got to do that if I was loaded. I bought a house when I had almost 2 years clean. I was talking about earlier that union construction, I wanted to get into a career field. Lost Dreams Awaken. I was able to plant my feet in somewhere and save up enough money, and I was going to buy a truck, and my sponsor was like, how much you guys saved? Buy a fucking house. What are you talking about? I was scared, man. It's like, but I had friends around me and a support group around me that had done that, so I was able to lean on them for support, just like I had done for step work or for service or for tradition work or anything else. So I bought a house at around 2 years clean, and life's been pretty good, man. This year 5 though, has been kind of rough. It was an emotional morning this morning. So when I was living with my sister, I got to spend a lot of time with my grandma. She lived there as well. I'm super close with my grandmother, and my grandma got really sick on October 8th, 2023. We're coming up on a year anniversary of this hellacious train wreck that started then. And she didn't wind up making it. She passed away on May 23rd. And well, what I got to do though is I got to be there. I learned how to show up for myself. But then through the step work and through continuing to show up in like years 3 to 5, I got to learn how to show up for other people and be present for other people, my family, my grandmother, my friends. And when I took my 5 years, she was in the hospital. She got to hold my key tag. I got to share my 5 years and celebrate my 5 years with my grandma. She got to see me grow up and become a man, get my shit together because I'd lost my car and she took me to go get it at she'd been through a lot and she'd seen the worst of me, and I was always welcome at grandma's table. But then the week that she went on hospice, I was able to take that week off, go be with her until the end. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I realized what the date was today, and that we were coming up on that 1 year mark of when that started. And so I was getting in it's the gift to be able to feel feelings today, right? It's like for a long time I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't cry. Like I was like, did I shoot too much dope and my brain's just fucking fried? But it's beautiful that I'm able to cry today and feel my feelings when I need to. Another exciting challenge the last year or so has been establishing friendships and connections outside of the fellowship. Because when I was using, I only kicked it with other addicts. I didn't want nothing to do with normies, clean people, nothing like that. When I first got clean, I was comfortable around other clean addicts in the fellowship. I didn't know how to talk to people about stuff other than recovery or using. And so as I've applied what I've learned, the principles I've learned in the steps over the last few years into my career, my normal day-to-day life, it's like I have some really good friends that are outside the fellowship and they're from work, like a couple really good guys, and they got to know me, and then I tell them my history, and they're like, I never even would have guessed, man. Like I didn't even know you were in recovery. And it's not that I'm embarrassed or hide it, but I got to protect my anonymity when I want to. But when I'm comfortable sharing that with somebody else, they don't believe that I even used to be like that. It's been quite a journey. What I've been dealing with lately is, so after all that stuff with my grandmother, my mom's she's bipolar, and she's been having a manic break lately. And all the family meetings used to be about me, but now I get phone calls from family about how to approach situations, and she's so we've been trying to figure out how we're going to deal with that as a family, though. But man, what a response, though. It's like I asked God for help that one night in my sister's house, and what a response. I got to stand up here 5 years later talking to a group of my people about the solution and how it's worked in my life. I mean, my life, since I've invested into Narcotics Anonymous and accepted that this is the solution to my addiction problem, has opened up like a flower in the sun. I mean, there's so many gifts I could talk about and so much stuff that's happened. It's just, it's been great. I mean, I have an immense gratitude for this program. I think that's all I got. Thanks, guys.